He stood up, slammed his mic on the table, and said it loud enough for the entire crew to freeze. "I'm done, I quit. You're not going to ruin my family." Right there, in front of rolling cameras, producers, his wife Elizabeth, and half the cast down the hallway, Andrei Castrovet detonated what might be the most chaotic moment in 90 Day Fiancé history. There wasn't even time to react properly. Just open mouths, hands in the air, and that eerie kind of silence you only get when someone breaks the script and says something nobody saw coming. Andrei wasn't whispering. He wasn't emotional in a teary, quiet way. He was locked in, eyes fiery, hands clenched, pacing like a man seconds from either storming out or flipping a table. Elizabeth sat frozen on the living room couch they usually used for family scenes. Her face cracked instantly. Eyes started watering, her voice hitched. She kept whispering, "What are you doing?" But he was already gone. A producer tried to get him to sit back down, but he waved them off and stormed out, pulling off his mic wire on the way out the door. The only thing louder than his footsteps was the tension that swallowed the entire set. And then came the tears. Real, raw. Elizabeth covered her face and begged the crew not to put this scene on air. But it was too late. Someone in post-production knew this was ratings gold. And the moment TLC dropped that footage, uncut and mostly unpolished, fans ate it up like fire. This wasn't a slightly edited tell-all hiccup. This was a mic-dropping walk-off. This was a husband going off script in the worst possible way and leaving his wife to pick up the pieces. On national TV. The hashtags came fast. Andrei quits. Poor Elizabeth. And our TLC backstage drama. Reddit threads spun conspiracy theories, Twitter went into chaos mode, and suddenly a question nobody had considered exploded into everyone's heads at once. But what if Andrei didn't quit? What if he was already being pushed behind the scenes? And this stunt was a last-minute cover move. Because the closer you look, the less this exit feels like power, and the more it feels like panic. And the real story? It was never what he shouted in front of cameras. It's what was whispered about him when the cameras weren't rolling. Within minutes of that episode airing, X, was shredded like a dress at a 90-day tell-all. The footage hadn't even finished rolling before fans were already typing full think pieces and reply threads. Andrei quits shot to trending in under an hour. But it didn't stop there. A second wave emerged almost immediately. TLC cuts him. Fan theories split straight down the middle, like a digital civil war. Was this a bold walkout, or was it a preemptive PR move before a quiet firing? Reddit was worse. Subforums exploded like someone tossed gasoline on old drama. One thread got over 8,000 comments in 6 hours. The top voted posts weren't praising Andrei for standing up to TLC, they were dragging him for doing it in front of Elizabeth, for dumping their entire public image like a hot potato, and for making his family drama look staged even when it wasn't. One user wrote, "This isn't a brave moment. This is a full meltdown disguised as a power move." Another replied, "He didn't quit. He got fired and wanted to spin it before the blogs crushed him." TikTok, an avalanche. Reaction videos, breakdowns, edits of Elizabeth crying in slow-mo, and split screens of Andrei storming out set to dramatic violin music. Influencers started posting body language breakdowns of him pulling off his mic, as if analyzing Olympic footage. Some even pointed to the way Elizabeth whispered under her breath. They weren't supposed to film this, as a blinking neon sign that this wasn't how things were supposed to play out. While fans were dissecting every facial twitch, the one face nobody could stop talking about was Elizabeth's. Her breakdown went from sympathetic to uncomfortable quickly. She looked like a woman who lost more than just a reality show paycheck. Insiders began leaking that she didn't know this was going to happen, that even the producers looked as shocked as she did. Her reaction wasn't performance, it was panic, because control had slipped away in real time, and she couldn't stop it with calm words or camera-friendly smiles. But wait, what if Andrei wasn't escaping TLC? What if he was already being replaced behind the scenes? And if that's true, when did TLC start writing him out? Months ago? Weeks? Or was this a long game brewing that even Andrei didn't know he was losing until it was too late? Off camera, things were already boiling. Andrei had been raising eyebrows on set for months, and not in the way producers love. Multiple insiders, ones who'd worked back-to-back seasons, started leaking quiet murmurs of frustration. Crew members described him as unpredictable, short-tempered, and distinctly uninterested in following direction. One ex-cameraman, speaking anonymously to a fan site, claimed Andrei regularly refused to reshoot scenes or comply with continuity requests. If producers asked him to soften up during a family argument or reframe a harsh comment, he'd laugh and call it fake. Editing teams allegedly had to work overtime smoothing his segments so they didn't come off as pure hostility. And while that used to be part of the charm, bringing that fire, that drama, by 2024, the vibe had turned. Production staff weren't excited to shoot with him anymore. Some dreaded his scenes. One even told Reality Tea he treats every producer like they're beneath him. He doesn't get that this is still a job. But it wasn't just the crew. Tensions with Elizabeth's family had worsened too. Becky, Jen, and Charlie reportedly started asking for shoot days without Andre. Even Chuck, the most diplomatic of the bunch, had privately acknowledged that things with Andre were no longer manageable. The fighting wasn't just for the show anymore. It had become so intrusive that people were questioning whether filming could continue with him involved. TLC, according to leak trails tied to early 2025, had already begun internal meetings to decide what to do. There were quiet backup plans in play. More solo filming with the siblings. More Chuck-centric family storylines. They had even started outlining creative shifts that didn't require Andre at all. On paper, it looked subtle. But in hindsight, it was a slow fade. A quiet reframe. A deliberate move toward life without one of their most turbulent stars. And then came his outburst. The viral, fiery, chaos-filled moment that had social media spinning. And yet, while Andre feared losing everything, his meltdown gave TLC the perfect escape hatch they were waiting for. Elizabeth Libby Podhast Castrovette had been through drama before, filming fights with her siblings, defending Andre to both fans and family, riding the highs and lows of being a long-term face of 90 Day Fiancé. But this was something else. Right after Andre's public meltdown aired, her Instagram painted a picture of calm. She posted a soft-filtered pic of her and Ellie at the park with a caption about choosing peace. Another story thanked viewers for sticking with them. But behind the screen, insiders say she wasn't sleeping. She wasn't okay. Sources close to production told multiple outlets she sobbed behind the scenes after Andre walked out, crying in the corner, not over losing screen time, but because she had no idea what was happening in front of her own eyes. She had stood by Andre while everyone else called him toxic. She defended his outbursts for years. She mediated between him and her explosive siblings, tried to hold the narrative steady when producers pushed for more chaos. But now, the storyline had turned into real ruin. Andre's decision to quit, on camera on a major episode, had crushed not just their image, but their financial security, their trust, and her entire sense of control. One source claimed Elizabeth kept whispering backstage, "He didn't even talk to me first. He just went and did it, like, my opinion doesn't matter." That one stung, because for all her smiling confessionals and scripted Vu's real-life tightrope walking, Elizabeth believed she and Andre were a team. She believed they quit together, stayed together, and built something as a couple. But now, she was left to manage the fallout solo, including calls from producers, backlash from fans, and tension from a family who was already itching to say, "We told you so." And TLC, they weren't stopping production for her breakdown. The machine rolled on. Viewers thought the drama ended with Andre's exit. But Elizabeth's unraveling had only begun, because just days later, Elizabeth allegedly learned something she was never supposed to know. A timeline, a quiet file, a plan. What did Elizabeth find out that made her question everything, even her own marriage? Long before Andre stormed off set, TLC had made up its mind. Quietly, slowly, but with full intent, they began cutting the cords behind the curtain. By late 2024, red flags around Andre were everywhere. Internally, the network had already labeled him high risk, too hard to manage, too aggressive on set, too unwilling to stick to storylines. He wanted raw reality. TLC, they wanted controlled chaos. So producers began shifting the spotlight elsewhere. Chuck started getting more solo interviews. The sisters, previously used just to provoke Andre, were suddenly being filmed in full side segments. Even the quietest moments, like casual chats at Jen's house or Becky helping with Ellie, were being shaped into usable scenes. Some fans noticed this pivot. Most didn't, because it wasn't loud. It was calculated. Back at Production HQ, this wasn't personal. It was strategy. They began setting up arcs that didn't require Andre at all. If he flaked, argued, or walked, the show would keep moving. Editors were advised to limit reliance on his footage. An executive producer reportedly commented in a roundtable that continuity without him is cleaner long-term. That's not the kind of phrase you use if you're still invested in someone's future on your hit show. All of it was framed to look natural, seamless, but in reality, the man who once dominated entire seasons was being trimmed from the edges like a cast member already halfway gone. Andre didn't see it. Maybe he couldn't. On screen, he still barked back at Elizabeth's siblings, puffed his chest in family meetings, insisted producers were twisting things. From his point of view, quitting was a power move, a mic drop moment. But power is only real if you still matter in the script. And by that point, TLC had already built a world that wasn't waiting on Andre to stay. So what broke TLC's patience? And why did they choose that moment to step away? Because if they were already phasing him out behind the scenes, why let that final explosion play out on camera? Unless they wanted him to take the fall in public. To understand how Andre ended up clapping back at the network live on camera, you have to rewind, not to TLC's office meetings, but to his in-laws group chat. Because the real pressure, it didn't start with an executive. It started at the family table. Becky, Jen, Charlie, they'd been clashing with Andre since season 1. But what began as scripted sibling shade escalated into something messy and deeply personal. Becky once told Us Weekly that filming with Andre felt like walking on eggshells, and hinted that the drama wasn't always manufactured. Charlie, in a now-deleted Facebook post, flat out called Andre toxic and accused him of dividing the family for clout. By late 2024, according to reports from multiple outlets including Reality Tea and In Touch, things had reached a breaking point. Becky allegedly told producers she wouldn't return if Andre remained in the central story. Charlie backed her. Even Jen, who had tried for years to play neutral, finally stopped attending joint scenes. The siblings weren't bluffing. One insider claimed TLC started scheduling family scenes around Andre just to keep production moving. And Chuck, the one family member who had always tried to play the bridge, even he was slipping. During a confidential producer interview leaked to a blog in early 2025, Chuck reportedly admitted that Andre's behavior on set is hurting my daughter more than anyone else realizes. So now, picture this. You're Andre. You're used to being the main guy. You think your blow-up moments drive the ratings. But suddenly everyone's filming without you. Scripts shift. Calls get shorter. Entire shoot days happen that you're not invited to. You feel pushed out, sidelined, replaced. Your wife, who once steered the drama in your defense, is distracted, stressed, doing more one-on-one filming with her sisters. You ask what's going on, and it's met with silence. Or worse, with production-coded language like tight schedule today and logistics, Andre didn't just feel betrayed by TLC, he felt betrayed in-house. And when he stood up to quit, he wasn't only speaking to producers, he was roaring at a table full of people. Who'd already decided they were done filming with him. Andre thought he was fighting TLC, but his biggest enemies were sitting at the same family table. Was Elizabeth forced to pick a side? Husband or family? Show or silence? The truth hit harder than any yelling match on screen. TLC money doesn't last forever. And once the cameras stopped rolling, so did the checks. Andre didn't just walk out of a TV scene. He walked out of the one job that kept them visible, marketable, and, frankly, paid. At first, he carried himself like nothing had changed. Online, he ranted about TLC being fake and how he chose his family over fame. But weeks later, things got painfully quiet. By early 2025, unpaid bills started stacking. A brand deal Elizabeth had lined up with a parenting product company suddenly fell through. Word had spread that the couple was no longer contracted talent, which meant no new show, no future episodes, and no network promotional backing. Influencer campaigns went cold, fast. Elizabeth tried to spin it. She posted more often, tried simple photo posts, even tested out mini family vlogs. But her numbers flattened. Without TLC behind her, the audience faded. Comments dropped. Engagement cut in half. One major beauty subscription box that had previously worked with her emailed a rep privately saying, "They're too controversial now. The timing couldn't be worse." According to a rep familiar with the franchise, TLC had offered select long-term couples a soft on-camera return arc. Only Elizabeth and Andre weren't on that shortlist. They had been quietly excluded. That meant no reunion check, no special, no new spin-off. Behind the scenes, Elizabeth was spiraling. A close production assistant reportedly told a tabloid she was crying during calls, not because they kicked her off, but because she saw everything slipping. Followers, money, stability. She said Andre made a mistake, and now she's paying for it. He, meanwhile, tried to lean back into real estate. But even that felt impossible. His name was too entangled with TV drama. Clients Googled him and backed out before closing. One agent in Florida leaked that he was being referred to as a risk client, someone media exposed enough to kill deals. And remember, this wasn't a power couple stashing millions. They were renting, raising a kid, trying to play influencer after reality stardom with bills that came monthly in platforms that couldn't promise reach anymore. The family who'd once bragged about access and next-level perks was now ghosted by the very doors that fame had opened. And it hit Elizabeth especially hard because she saw it coming, but not like this. She knew their show life wouldn't last forever, but she thought they'd have time to plan. Ramp down, cash out a little more influence, land a smoother exit. Instead, she watched it snap in real time. No runway. No warning. She had gone from being one of TLC's cleanest transition faces, poised, camera-friendly, family-driven, to a liability lumped into the network's drama trash bin. Andre hadn't just ruined the episode. He decimated their window of opportunity. And that window, it only opens once in this game. One source close to the couple whispered that Elizabeth became obsessed with rebranding, trying to get back in TLC's graces. She reached out to producers about a motherhood mini-doc. No deal. She offered to appear solo on Pillow Talk. The network passed. One text she sent to a contact in casting simply read, "Has everything changed because of him?" And even now, with their faces still frozen in memes from that viral fight scene, new projects are passing them by like they never mattered. And then, the phone call that changed everything. End of day, cold number. Not TLC, but someone else. The phone rang late. Elizabeth almost didn't answer, but something told her to pick up. It was a quiet voice on the other end, someone she used to work with from TLC's post-production team. They weren't offering her a job. They weren't asking her to return. They were calling off the record. Because they thought she deserved to know. In a few clipped, careful words, the truth finally landed. Long before Andre yelled, "I quit," TLC had already decided to fire him. Meetings had been held. Sine zrikat? Storylines shifted away from him weeks in advance. His walk-off wasn't a victory. It was a cover-up for a termination he never told her about. And just like that, Elizabeth's stomach dropped. The man who swore he walked away for his family. The man who said TLC crossed a line he couldn't tolerate. The man who blew up their entire brand in one viral moment had lied. He didn't protect her. He wasn't making a bold stand. He was trying to beat the headlines. And he dragged her into the fallout without a single warning. She hung up the phone in numb silence. Later, she told Jen. Reports say she broke down mid-conversation, sobbing between every sentence. Her voice cracked when she said, "He didn't do this for the family. He did it for his pride." Then she reportedly whispered the line no one expected from someone who'd been a mainstay of the franchise for years. "I don't even know who I am without TLC." And that wasn't about vanity. That was identity. TLC wasn't just a job for Elizabeth. It was the place she grew up, where she built a family, where she carved a lane for herself outside her loud siblings and controlling husband. For years, it gave her consistency and a sense of being seen. Now all of that was slipping through her hands. And Andre? He still spun the narrative online, arguing with fans, defending his stand against reality TV manipulation. But Elizabeth, alone in their home, watching brand offers vanish and DMs grow colder, was left wondering, was she just collateral damage in someone else's ego trip? But if Elizabeth was heartbroken, why did the people closest to her start turning their backs? Because once the truth came out, something else followed. Silence. Friends stopped reaching out. Siblings pulled away. And then came rumors. Rumors that TLC might want Elizabeth back, but only if she came without Andre. Offers don't knock twice in the world of reality TV, but Elizabeth might be the rare exception. After the dust settled and silence from TLC turned into slow, quiet conversations, rumors started swirling behind the scenes. Not about Elizabeth and Andre as a couple, about Elizabeth alone, a mom, a sister, a businesswoman, a potential comeback story. TLC hadn't made anything official yet, but people close to production say she's been floated as a possible guest on the next The Single Life season. Not as someone looking for love, but as a recently separated spouse with a high-profile story to tell. There was even quiet talk about a spin-off pilot focused on her navigating post-Andre life, raising their daughter, rebuilding trust with her siblings, and trying to reclaim a sense of self after everything had collapsed. Would she take it? She hasn't said, but here's what we know. Elizabeth doesn't have many other options right now. The influencer deals are thin. Joint brand work with Andre is out of the question. And the longer she stays off screen, the easier it is for fans to forget her altogether. If TLC opens the door again, no matter how narrow, she might have to walk through it. Alone. That means answering tough questions, on screen and off. Can a marriage survive this level of damage? Trust issues, financial stress, broken communication. The way she found out about his firing through leaked calls instead of her own husband. The way he posted about protecting his family while simultaneously torching their income and cutting them off from their biggest platform. There's no divorce paperwork filed. Not yet. But insiders say the marriage is tense. Some say she sleeps in a different room. Others say she's still trying to make it work. For Ellie's sake, not Andre's ego. Either way, what's clear is that Elizabeth is the one stuck cleaning up the mess. Cleaning it up financially, emotionally, publicly. Reaching out quietly to old network contacts. Posting safe, brand-friendly content while Andre rages in long captions calling out fake reality and toxic networks. She's the one fixing broken bridges while he swings a hammer at anything trying to hold the story together. He still controls the narrative on social media. But she's the one living the consequences in real life. And here's what makes this story even sharper. Andre always painted himself as the mastermind, the tough guy, the one driving the show, clashing with siblings, holding the camera's attention. But if TLC had been writing him out months before his outburst, was he ever really in control? And if not, who was? Was it Chuck, slowly pulling strings to keep his daughter afloat? Was it Becky and Charlie who forced TLC to choose between one man and the rest of the cast? Or was it Elizabeth herself, who, according to some insiders, had already been talking with producers about filming more family scenes without Andre before the meltdown even aired? We may never know. But one thing is certain, none of them saw it playing out like this. Now, Andre isolates further, posting conspiracies, calling the system broken, acting like he walked away victorious. But the cameras tell a different story. He walked away when he knew his name was already getting erased. And if TLC already wrote Andre out, where does that leave him now? What nobody's talking about is what he's planning next, and it won't involve Elizabeth.